The so-called stone tape theory, I'm going to add not to be confused with the stoned ape theory, which we have talked about, but the stone tape theory is a term often used by paranormal enthusiasts and has a place in most paranormal investigators' dictionary. Not mine until tonight, actually. Briefly, the theory follows that a scene or event, often of a powerfully emotional or tragic nature, is somehow captured within the stonework of a location and replays like a tape. Events at certain times in a fixed location to certain people or under certain circumstances. So there's a temporal aspect here. There's possibly a weather aspect. There's a maybe as the veil thins aspect, which we'll add as part of this tonight. But anyway, the resulting ghosts are said to be in no way sentient. They simply carry out a predefined set of actions. Back to the Gettysburg battlefields, things like that, when people see these soldiers kind of going through the motions of what this means, of just reliving that trauma, the trauma space in the world. And it's a wild thing, a wild idea. We're going to take a break in just a minute here, James, but to get a word from our sponsor. But anything to add, about a minute and a half, if you got anything to add to that, and your idea of what the stone tape theory might be. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I think the traumatic aspect of it is something that can cause this. Although I've heard plenty of accounts of people that have experiences where they see or hear these same things over and over again in their home, and they're just daily sort of everyday things. So someone walking down a hallway, and you only hear that same pattern every time. Dishes being moved around in kitchens, you hear that sometimes. So the I think there can be the extraordinary and also the mundane experiences that somehow, not in every case, but in some cases, do somehow leave imprints on places, and that's what people hear or see.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot to this. Like I said, we'll get into the stone part of this as well, because that's the thing that fascinated me the most. I was like, wait a minute now. It does make some sense that it's possible that some different type of elements, earthly elements or whatnot, would be more or less receptive to this sort of residual energy, or, those hauntings. So it does make a lot of sense. And of course, in the sense of a battlefield, you have something to the effect of, right, fortifications of, taking cover from catapults or, modern day artillery fire. So there's, again, back to maybe even fits into a little bit of the missing 411 type stuff with sort of the stone fortifications and whatnot causing some of this weirdness or high strangeness. Anyway, okay. As I was going through the information from this, it turns out that there was a movie. There's an old movie called, let's see. So, If These Walls Could Talk, the stone tape at 50 years old. So, and this is pretty weird because I didn't realize there was not just the term itself, but then there's a larger sort of philosophical thing that came from some, older scientists, which is amazing. But Charles Babbage is best known as the father of, let's see, am I at the top? Yeah, okay. So this is from the quietus.com talking the 50 years of the stone tape theory. Charles Babbage is best known as the father of the modern computer, which is wild, right? But he had other ideas too. In 1838, the mathematician and mechanical engineer wrote about what he would later call place memory. Okay, there you go. Theorizing that our voices and actions leave permanent but imperceptible imprints on the environment around us. In the late 1930s, Henry H. Price, a professor of logic at Oxford, posited that objects may possess memory traces played back only when handled by those sensitive enough to perceive them, which is, psychometry, something to that effect, right? In his 1961 book, Ghost and Ghoul, Thomas Charles Lethbridge, an archaeologist turned parapsychologist, because that's the best kind of archaeologist, suggested that stone might act as a recording device that could capture and play back historical trauma. These are the foundations of the stone tape theory. Ghosts are not wandering spirits, but lossless spectral recordings of past events made by our environment. The theory takes its name from Nigel Kneale's, Kneale, The Stone Tape, which is, again, first aired on Christmas in 1972. The BBC teleplay tells the story of a mansion whose very building blocks are a memory bank for centuries of trauma, which scientists attempt to excavate by conversing with the stone. About that, some sort of documentary thing where they were trying to talk to the actual walls. It sounds like, well, we're going insane, doesn't it? But it also sounds incredibly wild to me that this level of theory is not just, let's say, rooted in the paranormal aspect of residual hauntings, but also in something we've talked about in the past as well, called what's it called, panpsychism, where everything in some capacity has some level of consciousness that is sort of looped into or all inclusive of a consciousness field, meaning that everything out there is conscious in some way, in its own way. And so maybe talking to the walls doesn't seem so ridiculous. But I was surprised to find, once I found this term, that it goes a little deep. And not only that, there's a 50-year-old movie, 50 plus years old now, 51 or 52 is how old it is. And it's, parapsychology and cinema and this mixture of the veil thinning. And that's the thing that got me. So your take on that, James, on any of that stuff, I don't know if you knew any of that, which is amazing if you did or didn't, either way, because like I said, this is brand new to me, all of this. But I got another tangle to kind of drop into this, of course, because you know me, I like to layer some things. But your take on any of that stuff, talking to the walls or whatever else?
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that movie, but I've heard that phrase, stone tape theory, residual haunting, all these things over the years. Probably I first heard of them, ironically enough, through some of the early paranormal investigation reality shows that started coming out in the 2000s. I think when they first started out, maybe they were genuine, and then of course over time, TV entertainment industry gets more and more involved, and yeah. But anyway, tangent there. I won't go into. But the amazing thing to me about this whole idea is, think about the things that stones and or minerals have been used in over time. You have them being used to make objects such as parts of buildings or even just furniture in buildings, but also computers, technology as well. Crystals over time. There's so much that has been done with that, and there's such a major part of technology, but also a lot of people, swear by them as being useful for other things as well, with energy and things. So, and myself included there. So, yeah, just amazing how all this connects to each other.
Yeah, and back to that, the Superman thing, right? The Temple of Solitude. We've talked. Is that what it's called? I think that's what it's called. We talked about that, where it's they put the consciousness of his ancestors into these crystals, and in this case, they look like quartz crystals or something like that. But that's part of the theory, actually. As I was brainstorming the ideas and getting tons of theories on this and some different angles to look at. One of them was different types of rocks or different types of geological spaces can cause or amplify this. And a couple of them were, of course, quartz, and I think limestone was another one that was mentioned as part of that, which again is ancient structures. There's a lot of that stuff. Limestone built ancient structures, but then of course there's also the quartz business of the power crystal. They say it's an amplifier of spiritual energy and all the rest of that stuff. If you're into crystals at all, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you don't and you don't believe it, that's cool too, because like I said, no truth to be found here. But it does make me wonder about not just, let's say, the stone tape. Again, not stoned ape theory. That's different. That's Terence McKenna. That's consciousness, right, deriving from the mushrooms that they chased from the pack herds or whatever. This is stone tape theory, TAPE, and it is basically just residual psychic energy or traumatic energy being held in these rocks or natural rock structures, or not natural, sort of built as castles or whatever it is, cathedrals, whatever, what have you, and maybe being able to sort of play this back in some sort of thing. Yeah, but I got a few minutes left, so we're not in a giant hurry here. We'll get to Matthew right after the break, but yeah. Regarding that, I got some other stuff to get to, but your take on, let's say, limestone or quartz or anything else. What do you know about that, James?
Well, and even with some of the materials that houses are built with now, just in terms of foundations, possibly having any kind of the right minerals or elements in them that could still have cause that kind of activity in modern buildings. I think it's always possible. And stone is still used in some modern construction of I think larger places. And I mean, even with, I wonder how much there is when it comes to brick and all that. How much, again, I'm not an expert on architecture and what construction materials are being used these days, but if there's any of those elements, any kind of limestone, even parts of it, or quartz that's being used in the construction of homes, then it still is possible for that to be happening even today.
Yeah, 100%. And so a lot of ways to consider this. I wonder if, we've talked about in the past as like the pyramids or, Göbekli Tepe or some of these like really massive stone structures are possibly maybe the gravity signature is a gravity well for consciousness or, things like that. Again, just throwing theories out and not really going and measuring things, which is what you should do. But shocker, I don't have access to the Great Pyramid in my backyard or anything. But that level of, maybe the density of the gravitational signature or something to that effect when you have a ton, like a massive rock formation in a singular space. But it also got me thinking in terms of not just, let's say, something like that, like ancient civilizations and massive monoliths and monuments and all the things they created in the old days. But other things like new architecture, like feng shui, and sort of directing or redirecting energy through, dare we say, spiritual or ritual practices, because that's what it sure seems like. They say it, it just kind of feels better. But what does that mean? What does it mean for sort of the human psyche, residual energy, all the rest of it? And I wonder if they've tried feng shui on any sort of rock formations. Take on that, James. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know, possibly. And there's plenty of reports of odd, anomalous things being reported around places like pyramids and the different, like Stonehenge. There's different reports of paranormal activity and or even UFO activity around some of these sites that have are made up of all these, in some cases, massive stones. This also reminds me a lot of course, the first Ghostbusters movie with the building, the apartment building that is the focus of the story there, where they're trying to figure out why everything is happening there and what's going on. Well, it turns out the building is part of the story, even though it's not talked about a ton, but it's designed to be sort of a beacon for paranormal forces in that movie. And I just wonder, has that ever been done before? And is it still done in some cases now? Do people that know about these things, in some cases, do they make buildings to harness those forces without everyone knowing it?
Yeah, and that would be the thing, right? So not just sort of the feng shui effect, but harnessing this idea of the stone tape theory and building it into these big structures. Like I said, maybe that pyramid or whatever they kind of did in the past there. But you're right, that Ghostbusters thing is that entire building was some sort of supernatural antenna, and it was old architecture, which of course uses a lot of stone, a lot of stuff that we don't use in modern times specifically to build these things. But there is, of course, that massive stone foundation. There has to be. And so I think maybe you're onto something. I wonder if it is sort of an antenna inducing effect of not just, let's say, residual energy, as we're talking residual hauntings or traumatic experiences or any of the rest of that, the human energy, but something larger, something where you can maybe focus it, or as I said with the pyramids, maybe contain it, try and keep it from escaping, and I don't know, keep it in the dream realm, like a local dream space or something. You know what I mean? Like some sort of actual energy containment device or amplifier in that same sense. It's got to be, if this is at all true in any capacity, there's got to be ways to amplify it or to change it or to do some other things with it in that regard. So I don't know. So those are the questions tonight. All of those questions play. And as you know, this is nonlinear, open-ended. We can take these conversations wherever you guys like. That's and literally the point of this is to just talk to people. What do you know about this? Maybe one or later of you have spent some time in a haunted house or an old castle or something like that. Look, I don't really know, but that's exactly the point. That or maybe an old farmyard where you had like a stone building and you had maybe this effect going on. You tell me. You never know what experiences out there we've actually seen, or what have you heard about this? And does it sound plausible in any capacity to you? And if you say no, that's okay too. As usual, like I said, we're not here to. I'm not here to be the arbiter of truth in any capacity. I'm just here to have a great conversation and think about the wildness of everything and how this may or may not play in the past, present, and future. And that's that. We are here with James Salcedo tonight of Salcedo Paranormal, which seems silly. We wouldn't have James because he is the paranormal expert of Troubled Minds, and it is a paranormal show on the 15th of October. I almost said it again, 15th of Halloween. But we're halfway through the month, and we haven't done a single Halloween show yet. So that's what we're doing tonight, calling it Whispers in the Walls, Stone Tape Theory, and the Hidden Depths of Halloween. And have you heard of the Stone Tape Theory? And let's add the wrinkle. So the question is, when you add the wrinkle, you think Halloween and the thinning of the veil and this whole bit, would it impact any of this in any way, assuming it's real, of course, because that's what you do in a philosophical construct.